Hello there, and welcome to a new build guide for Age of Wonders 4. Today we got a Dark Culture build utilizing the Tome of Alchemy. This has been pretty much a community request, and it's been my pleasure to do this. It's pretty nice. It turned out to be a Dark Inquisition build. I didn't plan this, but yeah, here we are. We got the Dark Alchemy Inquisition now. So we're going to go over all the details, and before I get started here again, if you have anything that you want to see incorporated, let me know in the comment section and I'll see what I can cook up for you, friends. This build has been, as always, play-tested in brutal difficulty, and, well, I give it 4 of 5 points, but it has a stupidly strong late game. It just doesn't provide the insanity early game that I'm used from other overpowered builds, but, well, it is what it is, and I had a lot of fun with it. So, first of all, let's go over our traits. We're utilizing the new Hideous Stench trait because we are all about inflicting status effects. This is pretty much the theme of the build, and it works a lot nicer with this one. It also amplifies the magical damage of your units. Pretty nice stuff. The second I picked was Fast Recuperation because we are really low on support. This build has almost no built-in support up until tier 3 tomes, so this is really handy as it does allow you to regenerate HP in enemy terrain, which you usually don't. So it's pretty powerful, but you could always go for sneaky or overwhelm tactics, which would be both extremely potent exchanges for this one. Now, cultural traits. Ritual Cannibals is for me a must-have for this build, as it yields so much returns out of every combat that you fight, and it also gives you the very, very important soft support skill Corpse Eating, which not only does heal your units, it also lets you counter anybody who wants to resurrect something. It's really, really good, as destroyed corpses cannot be resurrected anymore. It's really versatile, and the extra mana and food per kill are really good. We're playing dark. Our cities can become as big as they want to be. We are never gonna have economic problems because of negative moral here. Mana channelers is my second one. I love this because we're going to go for very, very summon heavy things here later down the road, and it just frees up so much mana for your build. I can really recommend that one. You could, of course, go for other traits that are more to your liking, but I found these both very, very synergistic for this build. Okay, off to the tomes we go. The very first tome to pick is not Alchemy, but it is Zeal. Alchemy alone is powerful, but not powerful enough to carry the Dark Culture, at least not through brutal difficulty. Zeal, though, is exactly what we need. We get Legion of Zeal, which boosts up all of our damage dealers quite nicely, because we have already a bit of spirit damage included, and we got also Condemnation included, as later down the road, when we have Miasma, we will condemn everybody. Inspiring Chant is really cool, as it is a super powerful steroid for buffing up your units. Everybody who has Zeal is strengthened, everybody without Zeal gets some morals for better crits. It's a really, really good synergy. Zealots allow you to go for some throwaway units early on, but not much more than that. You start with that spell, you can utilize it, but early on I usually have other things to do with my mana. This spell is a bit meh, but maybe I didn't utilize it well enough, I can't tell. Condemnation is really good because you can cook up a single target burst, which also condemns until the end of the battle, so good against high tier units even later down the road, as it is very, very cost effective. Circle of Zealotry is a thing that, well, what can I say, gives more draft. It's very useful for this build because we're playing a very loss-heavy build. We kind of like have the losses included, therefore the extra draft is very powerful, and city stability never hurts to have. Yeah. Second to pick, Alchemy. So we picked this up with the Afflicting Miasma in mind, as it weakens the enemy, so we have a natural synergy with our cruelty thing, 20% extra damage whenever we do a melee blow against a weakened enemy. Also regeneration, so it's really, really powerful. And Affliction, we play a lot of different damage types in this build, and therefore we will be inflicting a lot of different statuses. But most importantly, it allows us to inflict condemnation with our zeal, which softens up the enemy's vulnerability to negative status effects even further. So it makes sure that you will be able to inflict statuses to high tier units as well. Also, anti-magic tincture, really good stuff, because you can counter a hex-wide debuff with that one, and the afflictors are your miasma appliers. You need those guys. They should be part of your archers. Don't replace all of your archers, because your standard line archers can inflict weakness. These guys are not as reliable at that. Good. Mysterious Tonic is pretty much useless for this build since we have no native supporters. You can teach it your heroes though. Material Refinery comes in super handy. Dark is always good at producing knowledge. This is enhancing our advantage even further. Gold never hurts either, and it's also in our abilities to build a extra research post for more knowledge. Very powerful since knowledge is really important for a build like that. The second tome, second tier tome to pick is the Tome of Inquisition. We picked this up with the Inquisitor's Mark in mind as one of the most important ones first up. This allows us to inflict a lot of statuses pretty reliably right from the get-go without miasma. It makes your archers a lot more versatile as you have a chance to inflict condemnation and weakening and slowing, even if you don't have the ability to spit out some miasma somewhere on the battlefield. I found this extremely useful as it also enables your afflictors to apply weakness without miasma, just with their baseline attacks, because that's what we got there. Burden of Guilt, pretty powerful as it allows you to nuke a enemy from afar. Mass Condemnation is just the AoE version of the one that we had before, and the Inquisitors play really nice into this build as well. Even better than your native tier 3 unit, as you would be surprised to see, as these guys have a ranged attack and they also have the ability to condemn, and they're pretty versatile in general. Tribunal is playing really nicely into our strategy again. We don't have to be unstable with Dark, we're just allowed to. And extra stability also results in a stronger economy, and this build is all in all pretty strong in its economy. Due to another gold generator here, we are really powerful in that regard, but it gets even better. First we have to pick though the Tome of Mayhem. This is sort of a soft CC tome, and as you see here I have learned every single spell in it. Marks of Misfortune is the first thing that we want to have here. Misfortune is inflicting the enemy with a fumble chance. That lowers their capability to deal damage by a lot. For a build that does not have any support or any real frontline, this is invaluable, as this lowers the enemy's chance to deal damage substantially. Curse of Misfortune allows you to apply that before you are in battle, also a very important tool, and Infectious Insanity can disable an entire cluster of the enemy armies. Pretty useful stuff, as is So Confusion, that displaces the enemy at the beginning, and they will start with Misfortune, which is really nice. And the Gremlins, honorable mention to these guys as they are summonable, and they can refill your losses super quickly. They can make the enemy vulnerable to flanking attacks, very powerful, and they have displacement, so they're fairly hard to kill. All in all, really good throwaway troops, and don't forget that your heroes can inflict misfortune as well. So when we head over to tier 3, this is your breakpoint. This is where you start taking over the game. Unlike other builds, I felt still quite weak in tier 2 tome area, but that was probably because I was facing my Industrious Nemesis, which is probably one of the hardest builds to kill with this build, because you're really good at blitzing down enemies and rushing down enemies and stuff that just is resilient is a problem for you. But I was victorious still, so that's been a really positive side. Anyway, Tome of Pandemonium rounds up your build, and Vessels of Chaos is the first menu to go. It increases your damage profile tremendously as we are racking up negative statuses left and right. We have Havoc Magic upgrading our battle mages substantially, and we can use Insight Revolution to really be annoying as hell to the enemy, although gotta be careful that you don't feed your enemy with resources there. Mass Hysteria is a really nice little thing, sometimes yielding impressive results, and the Chaos Eater is a backbone of your late game armies. These guys are able to transform negative statuses into burst damage, and that's what's making these guys absolutely lovely. You also have pretty decent standard attacks, as they are capable to inflict various different elemental damages, and that's just something we like. All in all, this tome is really, really powerful and very simplistic. So, the next tier 3 tome, you have two options here. If you have Dragon's Dawn available, you can go for the Tome of Dragons, and I personally see this as the more powerful one. As an alternative, you could go, if you don't have that DLC available, also go for a Devastation, which is also a very powerful add-on, giving you more blitz and burst damage, and adding up the ability to cancel defense modes with your battle mages, which is really, really good, as defense modes lower your damage, and everything that lowers your damage is bad for you. Either way, Tome of Dragons is for me the real superstar though, as it is providing you with many things that you were missing. You might actually pick this one first if you'd like to. Purifying Flame is a battle spell which finally gives you a healing, a AoE healing, and it is powerful. It also gives you the Flamer focus, upgrading your battle mages even further, as they now have an AoE nuke that inflicts even more statuses, as this is something that's really good for our build, especially for the Chaos Eaters. We also get access to dragons, so we finally have a real late game unit that has also some sustain. You don't need to have supporters in frontline if you just have epic dragons, and the Draconian transformation, you can pick it, you don't need to pick it. It's one major race transformation that you have available, but the tier 4 that we pick up later is, in my humble opinion, better than this one. So, also pick up the Wyvern Eyrie for tier 3 fighters. This upgrades your unit printing machine massively, so I don't know which one to pick first, is up to your situation, I'd say. If you need more high quality troops, this is better. If you need more control over the enemy and upgrading your damage profile in general, this is better. But these together are a really, really, really cool combo that I enjoyed a lot. Demon Gate and Chaos Channeling are the next things to go, and they are really good for this build. I was very surprised about it. Demonkin transformation is super good. You go Frenzy, and that is powering up your damage profile tremendously. And Demon Gate also allows you to use units that will die for sure as an AoE burst. Sometimes you just know that the enemy will kill a unit of yours next turn. This spell allows you to take some profit out of that. This is really good. It's really much better than I thought when I read it the first time. Fight for Power allows you to upgrade Fiends. You also get the ability to use your vassals for Fiends. And this is really good for this build, because we play with Order. We have the ability to generate vassals quite good. Look at this, I'm playing with 4 Whispering Stones here, so you can utilize the spell damn good with that, and you need troops, like I say. And Abyssal Flames is a really cool spell to grind down your enemy. This is terrain warfare at its best, because desolate terrain is among the worst things that can be around there. You also get free teleporters, basically, that act out as recruitment centers as well. And Demonic Anthem is really cool, as you get units back whenever something dies. Chaos Channeling gives you Demonic Focus, which is really darn good for your battle mages. Gremlin Ambushers, it's just really good when you fight around cities, be it enemy or friendly armies. Fan the Inferno can just apply a status onto the entire battlefield, so you can start out with more statuses. Golden Horde is just really good, and since we are playing mana channels, it's also cheap. You don't need to pay that much mana. And Scion of Flame comes in really handy, as we are now flame immune, spitting out flames, and yeah, really good stuff. Chaos Lord is then just the icing on the cake. Alright, so let's talk about our units for a sec. Dark Warriors are a dead end for this build. I didn't play successful with shock units with this build most of the time, but if the enemy is playing super squishy without a front line, these guys would be really good, but they will be replaced by the Dark Knights because they are just inferior to the Dark Knights, except for the fact that they aren't as vulnerable for spearmen. Pursuers are really valuable archers as they have a really good chance to inflict weakening. They have a very, very high chance baseline, and therefore there is a value in these even in the later stages of the game. The Afflictors, though, are tier 2, therefore more damage. They can put up miasma as well. My personal recommendation would be take it 2/3 Afflictors and 1/3 Pursuers or something like that. I played pretty decently without Pursuers at all when I had the enchantment of the Inquisitor's Mark, though, so that one is really handy because of, I mean, 30% ain't much, but it is at some point quite a guarantee, as miasma does inflict weakening without any resistance or anything that you can do against that. When you're standing in that cloud, you're weakened. That's powerful. Night Guards. Night Guards are where your front line's at. These guys, you should really spit out as many as you can of them because they will be the bulk of your army. They can be easily making up 50% of your army as they are really powerful against anything that's big or on a horse. Really good stuff. But they also have the Dark Stalwart, which means they are passively grinding down the enemy's resistances, which makes them super synergistic with the hideous stench trait of Oz. They are just so good at what they're doing. So they will die eventually. They are made to die, basically, but they are quite resilient and capable of spitting out a lot of damage in return, and a much better investment as the Dark Warriors. Really avoid Dark Warriors. They aren't good as soon as you leave the early game. I basically would recommend not to go for any of these and invest it all into Night Guards later. Warlocks are really cool. Two reasons. They have a nuke that always hits. They inflict cold damage, so we have another element that we can add in, or miasma will slow, and most importantly, they can strip down the enemy's defenses wherever needed with that one. Their magic attacks will stay not that powerful for most stages of the game, but we use them mostly for their utility aspects, inflicting various negative debuffs by just attacking people. Dark Knights are the shock troopers that you should pick up if you want to pick up some of them. They are really good against everything which is not consisting to 50% out of shields and spears. So, well, they're really useful, but they aren't that synergistic with your build because we're playing more of a playstyle where these guys will die for sure. If you don't mind them losing them, they can make up a really good hand grenade, and their Dark Surge is really good as they can deal double damage to people with negative status effects. And yeah, no further comment needed. But apart from that, I personally felt much better replacing the Dark Knights in this build entirely with the Inquisitors, as they were, for my personal playstyle, much more versatile, as they are also super fast. They're not vulnerable against any spear dudes, and they can stun. They can go in and out of the combat just as a shock trooper would, or due to the fact that they have skirmishers, even better, they just explode darned fast. But that's true for the Dark Knights as well. So, in the summoning department, the Zealots are really something you should ignore most of the time. They can be put up if you really need just something to sacrifice, then they're good in that regard. But apart from that, no further recommendations here. Gremlins are really cool if you have to fill up your losses with quick replacements troops, and the Chaos Eaters are just really, really cool as they are capable of generating more status effects around themselves, making them the perfect synergy for this build. And as they can consume things to just heal themselves up again, they should be capable of surviving. And if not, we are playing the mono-channel trade. They aren't that costly. You can really afford paying for these guys, as they cost you only 100 mana each. So, strategy-wise, luckily, your early game isn't as bad as I made it sound. you can easily topple over all the monster camps because that's what this build is really, really good at. You really easily swipe out all the enemy camps, as you see here. I have licked out everything clean, no leftovers. That's mainly because the all-in type of gameplay, you put your spears in front, you just let your archers shoot, and then you just let people die until battle is over, plays out good, and auto-resolving works a dream for this build for whatever reason that is. It's really important that you found a second city as quick as possible. Here I even took the cost of having a really suboptimal place for my second city, but it didn't matter too much because cities are productive either way, especially since you have a lot of really good province improvements with that build. You should not try to get yourself into an early war with this build. We're really not that good at fighting down enemies without bigger losses. You need 3 cities as quick as possible with this build as well, due to the fact that as soon as your economy is rolling, and it is fairly easy to get a good economy rolling with this build, as you have access to chaos, which allows you to take a lot of benefit out of all the killing. You can also get free units out of that, so you can conserve a lot of gold. Either way, 3 cities to have is really, really important. Cook it up slowly, don't go for the insane warfare before you feel really good, and most importantly, you need to be capable of printing out units in the background. Basically, with this build, before you want to start a war, you already want to have a couple of replacement troops or things in the pipeline here that you can send up back to the front line, because I just don't know how the hell you would be supposed to play this build without any losses. But you don't need to. It's not meant to be played like that. You should take good care of your costly high-tier units, especially when you get the dragons later down the road, to make them survivable. For your heroes, take out every little bit of support that you can get for them. Restore is a real powerhouse, because it is small but it is powerful, cleansing all negative status effects and applying a small regeneration. If you manage to conquer a free city of another culture, keep that culture and adapt to the support units they got there. If there's anything tasty, I can really recommend the high cultures supporters, or well, basically any form of supporter would play nicely in this build, as you have a fair amount of unit enchantments that are really synergistic here. We just don't have them natively. That, in the same conclusion, means wherever you can get your hands on supporters, keep them and keep them safe, because they power up this build massively, as the quick the quick perishing of your units is one of the biggest downsides of this build so far, which they cannot manage naturally. So therefore I went hard into summonings. Battlefield summonings pay off a lot out of that due to that, but I've been surprised about the fact that this build just decides to print out more units, summon out more units, and if somebody dies, you just fill up the ranks. And if you keep printing out money decently, which I, as you see, had no problem at all with the tomes we're running here, you will be just capable of replacing your troops, and that works out swimmingly. Later down the road, you will go very supreme with this build, especially since your high tier tomes are extremely powerful and you have an easy time cranking out lots of knowledge, bringing me to the point: focus knowledge as much as you can. Print out all the buildings that you can for that. Dark culture has the advantage of getting you into structures that provide extra knowledge, so their market provides 5 extra knowledge instead of gold, so you have a lot of access to that. And basically, I personally see it like that: if your build is meant to have losses along the way, the faster you can research, the more impact your hand grenades will have, basically. Therefore, this is one of the most important metrics in this build, in my humble opinion, that I've seen so far. Well, biggest downsides and biggest weaknesses, like I said, everything with a lot of sturdiness and resilience is a real nightmare for you, but that was really the only weakness that I've discovered, and I've been able to overcome that just by sheer numbers, and therefore, as a last recommendation, try to keep a lot of units on the backhand. And if you notice that you don't need them, but the enemy, there's still somebody else around the corner, you can just feel free to wage more war, as this build benefits a lot from taking down enemies. But you're also capable of doing a lot of diplomacy, which is really cool, as shadow is good for whispering stones, order is really good for whispering stones, and we also have a splice of materium with the dragon and the alchemy tome, allowing us to have access to really cool empire building skills here as well. And that start into the astral area is really cool. Try to get a depth of research as soon as you can. This little thing is more powerful as it looks, as it gives you even faster access to research, which is just stupidly good. And this trait is, for me, practically one of the biggest game changers. The moment you have death magic, you really take over the battlefield differently when you got enough mana to sport all those spells. As long as you have mana, your battlefield experience will change tremendously with that one, because it is working for both sides. Whatever dies on your side or on the enemy side. Therefore, really, really, really cool stuff. Alright, that's all I got for this build, and I hope you enjoy this one. I found it a little bit more challenging to play, but it is very, very rewarding. As a last note before I end, I wanted to mention that if you have access to the Merciless Slavers trait, would work pretty decently too, as you need different unit types. You could try that as well. I haven't had the time to try it out, but I felt like it could be a good candidate. So leave me your comments down below, let me know what you think about it, and like I said, leave me new ideas, recommendations, or things that you'd like to see done by my side, and I will see what I can do. Appreciate all the input and all the things you have to say, guys, and stay awesome. Keep a thumbs up on this video, and maybe you want to subscribe. Check out the description box down there as well, leading to Patreon, PayPal, and Buy Me a Coffee. Big thanks to all of you who already checked out these links and supported the channel, and a big thanks to everybody out there watching this video even after the ad roll. Appreciate that, and I hope you're coming back. Until we meet again, bye-bye.